Hey, I'm Srini, the creator of Maximize Your Output. Have you ever felt stuck because your projects don't seem to get off the ground? Often it's because your tasks aren't clearly defined. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to automate the process of creating a project overview and a list of clear, actionable tasks using MEM's AI feature. Whether you're planning a work project or a toddler's birthday party, you'll be able to use these ideas to draft a comprehensive plan in under a minute. Before we get to the tutorial, I want to tell you about our free 5-day video series where you'll discover how to elevate your project management skills while maximizing the value of every note you capture. Learn how to build your second brain and remember powerful techniques to organize, retrieve, and leverage your knowledge like never before. Visit maximizeyouroutput.com/second brain to unlock the full potential of your mind today. Now, let's get to the tutorial.
What I'm going to go over in this video is how you can automate the process of planning a project using MEM's AI features like Smart and MemChat. And this is a complete game changer because just by referencing a project overview and a specific framework for planning tasks, MEM can basically streamline the entire process and make project planning more efficient and less time consuming. So let's talk about how we actually do this. The first and most important part of this is going to be drafting your project overview. Now, this template here is a basic input template, and you can modify it based on whatever your needs are. So in a lot of ways, I think when we think about things like this, we need to see them as frameworks rather than formulas. But in this case, what I've done is I've actually created this project input template and MemChat drafted this for me. So then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in basically what our project name is, our main goal, our primary objectives, and then our outcomes and major themes and ideas. And then what we can do is we can take this prompt that Smart provides and apply SmartWrite to it and just say, use this prompt and then turn this into a project overview. So I'm going to go ahead and replace it with that. And now you can see this prompt take the input that we had here and converted it into this overview. One of the biggest reasons that people don't make progress on projects or end up wasting a lot of time throughout the day is just due to a lack of clarity. And it all actually comes down to something surprisingly simple, which is the way that they write their tasks. They might say something like strategize for upcoming podcast launch, which is really ambiguous. And the key to making a project move forward effectively is to write it in such a way where your tasks are measurable, which means putting a number in front of it, actionable, which means putting a verb in front of it, and tangible, which means having some sort of output, which is usually a noun. Now, this is a simple example from my own life, write 1,000 words. This is something I used to do every single day prior to writing 2 books with a publisher. And what you'll notice here is that this is a completely objective task. You either did it or you didn't. And what I like to say basically is that it needs to be written in such an objective way that you can say without question that you did or didn't do the task. Basically, you want the evidence that you completed the task to hold up in a court of law. Let's look at the task objectivity framework. So this is basically a framework that we're going to have the AI reference when we actually sit down and we plan our project. And you can see here, it basically is just a set of instructions to tell AI how I want my tasks to be written. So basically every task is actionable, every task is measurable, and every task has some sort of tangible output. So this increases clarity. It also makes you more accountable. It also increases focus because one of the things that Stephen Kotler talks about in his work on flow is that clear goals are a flow trigger. And there's probably nothing that amplifies the clarity of a goal more than putting a number in front of it. Now, that being said, one of the things you want to be careful of is making sure that it is a task where you can actually control your outcomes, because some people might say, have 1 million people visit my blog. That's not really a task. It's more of a dream or a sort of lagging indicator of what you did to get those people. So just be mindful about that. So now we've done 2 things. We've got a project overview, we've got a task objectivity framework, and now we come down to the part that is really easy, which is to plan the project. So in this case, we're not going to actually use the Urban Garden Initiative project that we came up with. But what I'm going to do is I am going to basically have SmartWrite actually draft my list of tasks for this podcast launch. So I'm just going to say, continue writing for me. And what we'll see is a list of tasks that meet all of the criteria that you saw in the task objectivity framework. So you can see here, define the podcast theme. So it basically is giving us an output, develop a content calendar for 10 episodes in the first season. So you can see here that all of this is very tangible. So here, this is the only one that I would question because we can't necessarily control 500 downloads per episode, but what it actually does give us as an output is an analytics record. So you'll see here that it created some duplicates. So what we can do is we're going to just quickly edit it, remove the duplicates, and make it a bulleted list. And so what will happen now is it'll clean it up. And what we'll have is our tasks for moving this project forward. And what we can do is we can say, basically convert all of these into task bullets. So then they actually become tasks. And if we want to do, we could remove the output. But the idea here is basically that now you can see here that every one of these tasks is actionable, it's measurable, and it is tangible. So in a matter of seconds, we took something ambiguous and vague, which was this project plan for launching a podcast, and we turned it into a concrete list of tasks, all of which we could say without question whether we completed or not. Let's look at one more example of project plan. So just for the sake of doing this, one of the things I decided to do was come up with something wacky. In this case, the next project we're going to look at is handbook for time travelers. Obviously, this is ludicrous because you can't time travel, but I thought it would be more interesting than just a standard project. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing we did before, and we're just going to have SmartWrite draft a list of tasks for the project. And in a matter of about 30 seconds, what we're going to have is a complete project plan. So you can see here, again, it's actually giving us very objective tasks. We can decide what we are going to do. This one is probably going to be a bit more vague simply because of the fact that it's a time traveler guide, which is ridiculous. So that's the basic gist of this. You can see here that it created a bunch of numbered listings. So what we want to do here is basically clean this up and separate the tasks from the output. And so that way it's cleaner. What I'm going to do is say separate tasks and output and make output a sub-bullet and remove any repetition. And so now it's going to clean up our project plan. And so you can see here that we actually have a pretty solid overview. So you can see here some of it. Again, this is one of those weird things with SmartWrite where the formatting gets a little wacky sometimes. So just be mindful of that in this process. But you can see here that this actually takes the entire concept of project planning and makes it much more efficient. Let's recap everything we've done in this demonstration. First, we drafted our project overview using this input template. And this is actually really critical because you have to know the objective of your project if you're going to move it forward. And that way you actually provide some clarity to the AI so it can help you generate the tasks. The next piece, which I think is probably the most important aspect of this, is the task objectivity framework, where we set it up so that when we use AI to define our tasks, it knows we want to make every task measurable, actionable, and tangible. And I'll provide a link to the file here so that you can just import this task objectivity framework into MEM. And then finally, we planned out our project. So you can see here that we have a list of tasks. So one thing you want to note, as I noted before, is that sometimes the formatting here gets a little funky, but if we want to do, we could remove all the outputs and then we just have our list of tasks. And that in a nutshell is how you automate the entire process of planning projects inside of MEM. The one thing that you need to be mindful of is the fact that you might not get it perfectly on the first attempt, and that's fine. In fact, that's one of the reasons I think people get so frustrated with AI is they expect the first response to be perfect. And often the first response is even not the best response. Be ready to iterate. This is going to require some experimentation at times. And also you may want to adapt some of these different templates to your own specific workflow or needs. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below.